All right, let's talk about the ultimate game of hide and seek. How in the world do you make a 10,000-ton steel tube just disappear? And not for a few days, but for months at a time, deep beneath the waves, completely self-sufficient. It sounds like science fiction, right? Well, let's dive in.
I mean, seriously, think about this for a second. We're talking about putting over 100 people inside a metal tube, sealing it shut, and then sinking it for 3 straight months. They need power, they need to breathe, they need fresh water, and of course, they need to eat. And you can't just pop up to the surface for groceries. Figuring all that out, well, it took an absolute revolution in engineering.
Just look at this jump in capability. It's absolutely staggering. Back in 1776, the very first combat submarine, a thing called the Turtle, could stay underwater for less than 20 minutes. Not even a full episode of a TV show. Fast forward to 1954, and the first nuclear sub, the USS Nautilus, pushed that to about 4 days. A huge improvement. But today, we're talking 90 days or more. So how did we get from 20 minutes to 3 months? To understand that, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning.
So let's start with what I'm calling the 20-minute problem, and it all begins with the Turtle. Try to picture it, you're crammed inside this little wooden ball, literally powering it with foot pedals, and the only air you have is what you managed to trap inside with you when you close the hatch. That one single thing, running out of air, was the problem that haunted submarine designers for pretty much the next 200 years.
Yeah, the Turtle's first mission in New York Harbor, it didn't go so well. And it was all because of these really basic limits. No engine, no oxygen tanks, the pilot was just pedaling for his life in the dark. The clock was always ticking, and the real limit was just the air in his own lungs. Once that started to run out, he had no choice but to come up. And you know, for a long time, every sub that came after, even the ones with steam or diesel engines, had that same fundamental problem. Their engines needed air to work, so they always had to come back to the surface.
And then the solution arrived, the one that changed everything. It was a total game changer, the USS Nautilus. See, this sub didn't have to surface because its engine didn't need to breathe air at all. Why? Because it was powered by a nuclear reactor. And that one invention just completely tore up the old rulebook on how long a sub could stay down.
So what's the magic behind this? Well, it all comes down to this one process, nuclear fission. At its core, it's a pretty simple idea. You take a big atom, like uranium, and you split it. And when you do that, it releases an absolutely insane amount of energy from a really, really tiny amount of fuel. That, right there, is the secret sauce. It's what gives these subs their incredible stamina. Okay, so how does this actually work on the sub? The easiest way to think about it is like a super high-tech steam engine. First, that fission in the reactor's core gets incredibly hot. I mean, crazy hot. That heat is then used to boil water in a totally separate, sealed system. That water flashes into super high-pressure steam. And finally, that steam blasts through turbines. And those turbines do 2 critical jobs. They spin the giant propeller to move the sub, and they generate all the electricity the crew needs for everything else. It's basically a power plant, just humming along hundreds of feet underwater.
And get this is what really blows my mind. The amount of energy we're talking about is just immense. A single reactor core, maybe the size of a big office desk, can power one of these massive submarines for its entire service life. We're talking over 20 years, without ever refueling. So yeah, I think it's safe to say the power problem officially solved.
Okay, so we've got nearly unlimited power. The sub itself could probably stay down there indefinitely. But what about the people inside? They can't exactly run on uranium, right? They've got much more, well, human needs. What do you think they need even more than power?
Right, air and water. That unlimited power we just talked about, it finally lets them solve that original 20-minute problem that the Turtle had. But now it's on a whole different scale. You're not just providing air for one person for a few minutes. You have to create a perfectly breathable atmosphere and a non-stop supply of fresh water for over 100 people 24/7.
And the way they do it is just brilliant. It's so elegant. They use the 2 things they have an endless supply of: electricity from the reactor and the seawater all around them. So for oxygen, they run an electric current through seawater, a process called electrolysis. This literally splits the water molecules, the H2O, into hydrogen and oxygen. The oxygen gets pumped into the sub's air supply, and the hydrogen just gets safely vented overboard. And for freshwater, they basically do the same thing you would anywhere else. They boil seawater, which leaves all the salt behind, and then they capture that steam and cool it back down into perfectly pure drinkable water.
But just making oxygen isn't enough. You have to get the balance just right. It's this incredibly delicate dance. If you have too little oxygen, the crew starts to get confused and tired. That's hypoxia. But if you have too much, the air actually becomes toxic, and the risk of a fire goes way, way up. And at the same time, you've got these systems called scrubbers that are constantly pulling the carbon dioxide everyone is breathing out of the air. It's this perfectly engineered closed-loop ecosystem. Okay, let's recap. Unlimited power? Check. Unlimited air and water made right from the ocean? Check. From a purely technological standpoint, it really seems like these things could just stay down there forever. But they can't. There's one last problem, one final limit that even a nuclear reactor can't solve.
So, with all that, what's left? What else could you possibly run out of? You've got power, air, and water covered. What's the one crucial thing you can't make from scratch deep under the ocean?
Yep, food. That's the one. It's the ultimate limiting factor. You have to bring every last meal with you when you leave port. And once the food is gone, the mission is over. Period.
And the amount we're talking about is just massive. 20 tons of food. That's what it takes to feed about 130 people for just 3 months. They literally stuff it into every nook and cranny they can find, underneath beds, lining the hallways, you name it. There are no resupply ships coming to meet you when you're that deep. So when the pantry starts to look empty, it's time to head home.
And honestly, beyond even the food, there's the human element, the sheer mental toughness it takes. These crews live on an 18-hour day. It's just this constant rotation of sleep, eat, and work. Many of them hot rack, which means they share a bunk with someone on the opposite shift. So you finish your shift and climb into a bed that's literally still warm from the person who just got out. On top of that, you have to be quiet. So quiet. Every little sound could give you away. Can you imagine that? 3 months with zero sunlight, no weather, just artificial lights and the hum of the ship. It takes a special kind of person to handle that.
So we've spent all this time talking about how these subs stay hidden, but that brings up the really big question, right? Why? Why go through all this incredible trouble just to disappear? And the answer to that, well, it gets into some really serious global strategy.
It's all about something called the nuclear triad. Now that might sound complicated, but the idea is actually pretty straightforward. It just means a country has 3 different ways to launch a nuclear weapon, from land-based missiles and silos, from bombs dropped from aircraft, and, you guessed it, from missiles launched from submarines. And out of those 3 options, the submarine is, without a doubt, the most important one, because it's the most survivable. Think about it. Missile silos, Air Force bases, those are all fixed points on a map. An enemy knows exactly where they are. But a ballistic missile sub out on patrol, it could be anywhere in millions of square miles of ocean. It's a true ghost. You can't hit what you can't find.
And that's why they're called the ultimate second strike weapon. It's like the ultimate insurance policy. The thinking goes, even if an enemy launched a surprise attack and managed to take out all the land-based missiles and bombers, there would still be this submarine, somewhere out there, hidden, ready to respond. And just knowing that's a possibility is enough to make launching that first attack a terrible, terrible idea. It's really the whole foundation of nuclear deterrence.
Which leaves us with this incredible paradox, doesn't it? The ability to hide this much power for this long isn't just a technological marvel. It's a strategic reality that has shaped our world for decades. Because it turns out, the true power of the most powerful weapon we've ever built lies in its ability to never be found. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.